It's time for Who's Who Tonight. Interesting topics, fascinating people. And now, your host of Who's Who Tonight, Mark Bishop.
He's known as the Golden Arm. At the time of his retirement in 1973, Johnny Unitas held virtually every career passing record that existed in the NFL. Today, he's hailed arguably as the greatest quarterback that ever played the game of football. Tonight's guest is Johnny's son, Joe Unitas, who is hard at work on the screenplay about his father's pursuit of his childhood dream, to be a pro football player. The project is entitled Unitas We Stand. Will you please welcome movie producer, writer, and actor, Mr. Joe Unitas. Joe, thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Now, Joe, before we start to talk about your dad, tell us a little bit about your background.
Oh, well, grew up there in Baltimore until I moved off for college and graduated from South Carolina, walked on the football team down there. And then, not long after college, about 1 year, I told my dad that I was going to move to California and give acting a shot. He thought I was crazy. He said, "But you don't know how to act." I said, "Well, that's okay. I'll learn." But that was the great thing about my dad and my mom both is, what I wanted to do or Chad or Paige, they've always been very supportive of everything. So that's where I went. I was out there for about 7 years pursuing acting and met my now wife, and we have 3 great children, and it was a good experience for me. I didn't become a working actor, but I got a family out of it, so I'll trade that any day.
Joe, your father held numerous passing records, some held for decades. Do you know of any that still stand?
Gosh, you know what? I don't know if any of them are still standing. The last one, I think Drew Brees broke last October.
Correct.
The consecutive games with a touchdown pass of 47, which was fine. I actually wrote a letter to Drew wishing him good luck and hoping that he would break it. And, my dad didn't give a crap about records, things of that nature. The only thing that mattered to him was, did we win the game? And if he threw 5 touchdown passes and they won, or if he threw 0 touchdown passes and they won it, that was all that mattered, was the win.
Yeah, your dad was known for being a true team player for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, Joe, being a Hall of Fame football player, your dad was a very popular and recognizable person. What was it like growing up with a celebrity as a father?
Well, when you grow up with it from day one, and that's all you know, that's your normal life. So it's not like I was, Bill Smith's son, and sorry if there's a Bill Smith listening. And then I became Johnny Unitas' son. So it was normal for me. We obviously got to do some things that other kids didn't, that didn't have famous parents. But at the same time, you knew if you were going somewhere, it was probably going to take a little bit longer to get there and to get out of there. You had to be patient because my dad was very open with the fans and would stop to shake hands and chat and sign autographs. But he was a great role model for me and my brother and sister growing up of how you should treat people, and so it was great. I loved it. I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Now, Joe, did you ever experience the pressures of people expecting you to follow in your father's footsteps as a football player? I mean, I kind of went through it on a smaller scale with my older brother Gary being a pro baseball player, but you, being Johnny Unitas' son, one could only imagine the expectations, that carry on his legacy.
To be honest with you, there wasn't. I did play football and lacrosse and a bunch of other sports, and went into college and played football and lacrosse there as well. But I remember when I was in high school, my dad just, having a conversation that, don't let anybody, put pressure on you, or if they think that you're supposed to be me, they're just idiots, and you just have to look past that. I was fortunate. I never really had any coaches, in football that really had any of those kind of expectations until I got to college at South Carolina. I had a quarterback coach. I won't say that he had expectations of me, being like my dad. However, if I, would throw a bad ball or, throw an interception or something like that, he would, make little side comments like, "Oh, your dad wouldn't have done that," or I'd tell him, "Well, you know what? My dad's not here, so tough." I think he was, just trying to give me a hard time a little bit, but after you say it over and over, then it gets to be a little bit annoying. So
right. Now, Joe, your dad was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1979, and I believe this is before Chad was born. I definitely know it was before Paige was born, but do you have any memories of the day your dad was inducted into the Hall of Fame?
Paige wasn't born. Chad wasn't born yet either. That was in August, I think, is when they probably have the induction, because that's when it is now.
Correct.
And then, so he was born in December of 79. So I was there. I was 5. So I don't remember very much of it at all. To be perfectly honest, I kind of vaguely remember the parade, going through and seeing the Hall of Fame. But if I had to guess, at 5 years old, at a ceremony like that, I was probably bored stiff.
Now, as we all know, the Baltimore Colts left Baltimore in 1984 and headed to Indianapolis. Now, Joe, do you remember what your father's thoughts and feelings were about the situation at that time?
Not the specific ones. I know that he really never had a very good relationship with Mr. Irsay.
Correct.
And I'm sure he wasn't too happy that he just took our team in the middle of the night. That's something that cowards do. He's a coward. The good news is, in regards to that family, it's my understanding that his son is the polar opposite. So at least they've got somebody, good and trying to do the right things there in Indianapolis. But it was a tough time. Obviously my dad had put a good part of his life's work into helping that franchise become as good as it can be, and when it's taken away, I'm sure it was tough. But I mean, you know him, Mark. He was never one to really show emotion.
No.
He says that he always says, I get emotional over children and animals. At the end of the day, it was a business, and the guy made a business decision to move the team where he thought he could get a better deal.
Now, in 2006, Tom Callahan wrote a book entitled Johnny U, The Life and Times of Johnny Unitas. Joe, tell us about the book, and also give me your personal views about the book itself. How you and your family felt about the accuracy of what was written in the book.
Well, I love the book. It's the only biography that my mom has ever authorized to be written. And the cool thing about Tom is, back when my dad was playing, Tom was just getting his start as a writer. And he wrote for one of the local papers there in Baltimore. And I think there's a story in the book about Raymond Berry actually introducing Tom to my dad because he was too nervous, to go up and introduce himself and ask if he could get an interview. So Raymond took him over and made that initial introduction. But he did a great job, with all the research that he did. He talked with me, he talked with Chad, he talked with Paige. I think he tried to talk to some of the older kids from my dad's first marriage. He talks with my dad, my Uncle Leonard, obviously my dad's brother, his two sisters, a lot of the guys. So he put a lot of time and effort into researching, and then he put together a great book. And the first time I read it, I actually learned, some things about my grandmother and grandfather, and them coming over here on the boat, and some of the things that they went through very early on when they got here to the United States. So it was great. It was a nice history lesson for me, and that led to me writing the screenplay, and now it's a history book for me, and I'm actually reading it to my two young sons right now. Every night before they go to bed, we sit down and read a little bit. So it's very, very special, to me for that reason. It's a family history.
So in your personal view, this is a pretty accurate depiction of your dad's life.
Yeah, I think everything in there was really accurate. He put in the time and efforts. I know there's some other books out there that have been written, and they don't even get my grandfather's name right. So if you're going to write something, you should probably do your homework on it. And Tom definitely did that, and he's just an awesome guy.
Now, Joe, you're currently working on a movie project about your father's life entitled Unitas We Stand. Now, I would love to see a movie about Johnny Unitas, as I'm sure a lot of other fans would as well. Joe, tell us about the project.
Yeah, when my dad was alive, various people came to him and asked him about doing a movie. And, again, how humble he was. His response was always, who in the world would want to go see that? A movie was never made. And then after he passed away in 2002, my mom was approached by a few people about doing a movie as well, and I was actually living out in L.A. at the time of his passing. I was back home. I don't even remember why, because it was after the funeral. I think maybe a few months. I might have been back home for the holidays or something. And we met with a couple other people that were interested, but it was just really never the right fit. So I told my mom, and if it comes down to it, I'll just write the screenplay if that's the direction we decide to go in. And then nothing really happened for 4 years until we got Tom's manuscript. And when I read it, I said, oh my gosh, the movie is in here. I just have to figure out, what story we're going to tell, because nobody wants to go sit in a movie theater for 4.5 hours, which that whole book would probably take to tell. So what I did was I picked out, I think a portion of my dad's life that not too many people are all that familiar with, and that's his early life. The script covers age 5 to 25 and really tells the backstory of his pursuit to achieve, his childhood dream of becoming a professional football player. So, it's more that background. He was constantly being told, no, you can't play, you're too small, you'll get hurt. And, he was just probably hard-headed enough not to listen to people and, just keep working as hard as he could, and ultimately, achieved his goal. So I think we've got a really, really good script. And I actually just came back from Los Angeles. I was there for the last 3 days, meeting with a lot of different people, studios, production companies, about this story. And it's really interesting. Wherever you go and you say the name Unitas, at least to grown men, they stop in their tracks and they're like, "What?" And you tell them about it, and they get really, really excited. So these last few days have been really, really good, and I think we're one step closer to getting the money that we need and get this thing into production.
So, Joe, do you see this project coming together anytime soon?
Yeah, what we would like to do at this point, everybody that we talked to these past few days, is we told them, the timeline we'd like to have is to be able to get a deal done within the next few months and be able to announce that it's going into production at the Super Bowl in February of 2014.
That's great. Now, I understand that you're going to actually have Joe Flacco do some of the physical scenes in this movie. But other than Joe, do you have any other people in mind as far as casting to be in this project?
No, I mean we kind of got a list of guys that we would like to play my dad, and maybe some people that we would like to play. My dad's first wife, Dorothy, because she has a nice role in the film. But as far as Joe's concerned, he's not going to be doing any acting.
Right.
He's just going to play my dad in the 1958 game and handle, all the quarterback action.
Right.
That was Joe's question when this offer came up. He said, "I don't have to act, do I?" I said, No, not at all. Don't worry about that. Just play football, man. That's what you know how to do.
Right.
Do that.
Yeah, and I know that you've been getting some feedback from fans about the fact that Joe Flacco is going to be doing some parts as your dad in the movie, but it seems that Joe is just going to be pretty much like a glorified stunt double.
Yeah, it's you're absolutely right. I mean, nobody's going to see his face. It's just going to be him, doing all the football action. I can't think of anybody better than an NFL quarterback to handle that role in the film. So that's why we're using Joe. You'll never hear his voice. You'll never see his face. It's just probably just help us get those shots done quicker because he can get it, hopefully done in a few takes.
And that's the whole purpose of hiring somebody for any job. You just want to make sure the job is done right.
Yeah, and as far as the actors go, because the movie spans age 5 to 25 of my dad's life, there will be multiple actors that play my dad. It's probably going to end up being about 3, but the star, that everybody asks about, he's probably going to have to be able to cover age 18 to 25. I would love, I think our number one choice right now would be Channing Tatum. Channing's a little bit older, but they can do a lot of great things with makeup there in Hollywood. So we could make him look younger. Now it's just a matter of, is he interested? Does he have the time?
Right.
Can we financing? I mean, people don't understand how many stars have to align to actually get, a movie to be made.
Right.
So you might have a better chance of flying out here to Vegas where I live and going down to Bellagio and hitting the jackpot.
So it sounds to me that putting a movie together is a difficult project. It
is. It's extremely difficult. The movie business and just the entertainment business is changing, a lot. You used to be able to rely on, foreign pre-sales and DVD sales, and with a football film, and that's what everybody keeps saying, oh, it's a football film, it's a football film. Well, football is an element of the film, but, it's really that story about my dad. But at the end of the day, that people still are going to see the football, and obviously you can't get a lot of foreign sales when it comes to football because there's not a ton of countries out there that even play football.
Correct.
I did some research the other day. I think there's 66 foreign countries that play American football. Majority of them are in Europe and South America. And so in India, I don't think Johnny U is going to play too well.
Right.
But at the same time, it will do extremely well here in the United States. When you talk about a budget from a movie standpoint, our budget is $12.8 million, which isn't a whole heck of a lot.
Right.
So, and then with tax credits and federal tax incentives, things of that nature, we're in a position where we can probably take about 60% of the risk for the investor off the table. So, I mean, basically what we've been telling people, it's 12.8, so let's just call it 12. When you take that percentage out, the question is, do you think a movie about Johnny Unitas can make, maybe $4 million in this country? And if it does, then you've recouped your investment, and everything after that is gravy.
Now, Joe, did you find it difficult to be creative without losing the facts when it came to writing the script?
Yeah, when I was writing the script, we tried to stay, as close to, the truth as possible. Now, the script is, taken a few years to write. Fortunately, I've had, guys like Barry Levinson and David Onspaw, who directed Rudy and Hoosiers. Those are two of the guys that have really helped me over the years to really develop the script and let me know, take this out, develop this, you need to add something here about this. There have been, I don't say there isn't anything in there blatant that you're going to see on the screen and go, no way, that never happened.
Right.
Something might be embellished a little bit, but I think people understand that when they go to movies, that not everything is going to be 100% right on, but at the same time, this is my dad and my family name that's going to be up there on a screen. I want it to be as accurate of a portrayal as possible. We're not going to let it get too Hollywooded up with just lies and things that aren't true about him.
Right. Now, just recently, Drew Brees broke your father's long-standing record of consecutive games with a touchdown pass. That record stood for 52 years.
Yep.
You sent him a letter just before he broke the record, pretty much giving him your family's blessing. Tell us about that, Joe.
He was very, surprised that I would even reach out to do that.
Right.
But Drew's awesome. I mean, you see what he obviously he's a great football player.
Mm-hmm.
But what I kind of told him in the letter was, my dad would be more impressed by, the man he is, the father he is to his children, and the leader that he is for his community. At the end of the day, that's going to be, what's most important. And I think what Drew wants to leave behind is, what he does to help other people. And I think that's what we should all focus on. I don't care what walk of life you're in. If you're a professional quarterback or a guy punching the clock somewhere. But Drew was great. He was very humbled by the fact that I actually came down there and got to meet him and gave him the script. And I can continue to stay in touch with him even now. He's just tickled as he could be to have Coach Payton back, and they're having a heck of a year. So, he's a good guy.
And speaking of which, I have to say, as you know, I was fortunate enough to know your family, your mom and dad, you, Chad and Paige, 20-plus years or so. Easter Sundays at the 4100 Club in Baltimore, spending every Easter during that time with all of you guys. Your dad tossing out autographed footballs to the neighborhood kids. I never recall your dad ever turning down an autograph or a photo. I always have that memory of your dad, with his family, with the people of the community, his fans.
Well, that was most important to him. He did his job on the field, and the notoriety and everything that came along with that was a byproduct of it. But why would that ever change how he treated people and the things that he was able to do for the community? That just comes from his from my grandmother, and the values that she instilled in him. He and my mom did the same thing with Chad and I and Paige.
Because, in all the years that I've worked in entertainment, and I've met not only, sports figures, I've met actors, I've met musicians and other so-called celebrities. With all the time that I spent around your dad, and I saw, not only how he was to his family, but how he was to, to his fans and to the community. When you meet these other so-called celebrities and these sports figures, they don't really seem to measure up to the same standard that was your dad.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. This has become a me society, and it's just sad. I wish more of them were like that. I think probably more of them are, but the media, they won't go out and tell you about all the good things that somebody's doing. But as soon as they do something bad, man, that's going to be on Facebook, on Twitter, on TMZ. It's really more of a reflection on our society that we live in today, and we're not heading in a good direction, that's for sure.
Yeah, Joe, I have to agree with you on that. Now, Joe, let's get back with the movie. Do you have any idea when you start production?
Well, Mark, it's really all going to depend on, number one, getting the financing, and then also securing a director and an actor. So you gotta, it's kind of the chicken or the egg in this business. I mean, if you go and talk to agents or actors and you want to get them attached, it's, well, are you financed?
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to go get the financing, then the investors, they ask you, well, who's starring, who's directing?
Right. Yeah, it's like establishing credit. How can you establish credit if you don't have credit history,
You got it. So it's, you got to kind of be playing on both sides of the fence, and hopefully, at some point in time you can marry these two together, and now you're off and running. I mean, you can even get a director who says, "Yeah, I'm on board," and the actor, and you have your financing. But you know what? That actor, he's on board, but I'm not available, for the next 16 months because of these other projects that I have.
Right.
These guys aren't just sitting around, waiting for the phone to ring and say, "Yeah, let's go to work." They've got, things planned out, years in advance if they're, big enough and popular enough. They've been working really hard for years and years and years to get to that point. I mean, this celebrity doesn't, last forever, so they got to take advantage of it while it's there, because you make one or two duds out in Hollywood, and you're out there looking for the next hot thing.
It's like pardon the pun, but it has to be a team effort.
It does, and then even if we would love to shoot a movie in Maryland, then the thing that you have to look out there is can you when do they have availability in Maryland as far as the local crew and production staff and the tax credits. I mean, there's a million different things that have to come together to pull off a movie. So, like I said, it's all, if you can make it all work out, it's almost like hitting the lottery.
Now, Joe, do you feel like you're close to a project date?
I'm really happy with what transpired over the last few days. I mean, we met with some, very, very high-level people with studios and, production companies, some people that have, deep pockets or have direct relationships with people that have really deep pockets. I heard a lot more in the last few days of positive feedback from people, which isn't too common with this industry.
Now, Joe, your website is unitaswestand.com. I would think that would probably be the best place to go for information on this project.
Yeah, that's the best place to go. Is right there. They can access our Facebook page from there. We're constantly posting things to Facebook to keep people updated on the developments. Where I'm always putting up new pictures, some quotes, things of that nature, just to keep people engaged. And we want as many supporters of the project as we can. And it's going well so far, but we're looking for more, and that's exactly the best place to go is UnitasWeStand.com. If they want to make a contribution to the project, that's great. I do want people to know that we have tied in 2 charitable partners to the project, Gridiron Greats, which is headed up by Mike Ditka. And basically what Gridiron Greats does is it helps a lot of these, older players that are in need right now. I mean, we hear it every day. I mean, heck, just last week we heard about Tony Dorsett starting to have some of these memory issues. So what Gridiron Greats does is they provide money, to a lot of these players to help them out, help them out with maybe the mortgage or the water bill, getting these guys to their doctor's appointments, to hospital visits, whatever. People have to realize that back when majority of these guys were playing, the contracts weren't nearly what they are now.
Absolutely.
My dad, his biggest contract was his last one, that 2-year deal that he signed with San Diego.
Right.
And that was for $500,000.
Wow.
And he didn't even play the second year, so he only got $250 for that 1 year. I mean, still, that's a lot of money for a year. But when you put it into what the guys are getting paid now, heck, I'm sure there's some guys out there that probably make $250 for a game.
Correct. The game now is changed in so many different ways, and not necessarily for the best.
Right. But, the guys like my dad and his teammates and the guys that he played with in that era, they kind of built the foundation. And, the guys now are, reaping the rewards of it. I think that the NFL obviously does a tremendous job of, making it as fan-friendly, as exciting as possible. But, it's $1 billion, industry now.
Right.
It's come a long, long way.
Yeah, and your efforts in this project is to tell the story of one man who helped get the NFL where it is today.
Yeah.
Mr. Joe Unitas. Joe, thank you so much for being on the show this evening. Really appreciate it.
Mark, I'm glad to do it. Anytime you need something, we'll be more than happy to help out.
You can visit his website, UnitasWeStand.com, for information on his movie project about his father, the great Johnny Unitas. That's it for us for Who's Who Tonight. I'm Mark Bishop. Thanks for listening.
You've been listening to Who's Who Tonight with Mark Bishop. Visit us on YouTube and on Facebook, or go to our website, who'swhotonight.com.